The future is now, bringing you my rest of season rankings heading into week 10 fantasy football. And we started off with the running backs. We started off here in the S tier, and we got Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams, and Joe Mixon. Now, out of this S tier, pretty solidified. We've moved some things around in my S tier. Main one is Bijan Robinson jumping Derrick Henry to that overall RB2 spot in full PPR for rest of season rankings. Really thing here with Bijan Robinson, he's been absolutely on a heater the last 3 weeks, and especially when we're looking in full PPR, we're talking about a guy that has that receiving upside where he's getting the targets, he's getting the receptions, and if that continues to happen, I like his upside a little bit more than Derrick Henry, but this top three is absolutely elite for me between Saquon, Bijan, and Derrick Henry. Then I kind of rounded out with Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams, Joe Mixon. Clear top S tier of running backs for me in the running back spot. We move on to the A tier. In the A tier, we got Devon Achane, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. And when we're starting and talking about this overall A tier, Devon Achane just seems to be back to that overall upside that we absolutely love to see. Now, when we're looking at this Miami Dolphins team, of course, we need to see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle start to emerge for Tua Tagovailoa, but I absolutely love what we're doing and looking with Devon starting off here in the A tier. Breece Hall has been a guy that I've absolutely loved trading for in all of my fantasy football leagues as we head down the stretch, because it has been a disappointing part to the season, especially with the fact that you drafted Breece Hall as a top 3 running back. Have him here in the A tier. Kenneth Walker, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, loving the volume. We'll have to see what happens with CMC with him coming back from that injury. All signs are up for him in week 10 fantasy football. Jonathan Taylor, and then Alvin Kamara. We move on to the overall B tier, and we got Aaron Jones, James Conner, David Montgomery, Tyrone Tracy making a shoot up the rest of season rankings on the board. Tony Pollard, Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, and DeAndre Swift. Love a lot of these guys in the range for multitude of different reasons. Of course, starting it off, James Conner, the volume. Aaron Jones, the volume has been great. David Montgomery, the touchdown upside. Tyrone Tracy's absolutely taken that role from Devin Singletary over the last 3 weeks. Tony Pollard's getting crazy level volume. Brian Robinson in this amazing Commanders offense. Chase Brown, we'll have to see with Khalil Herbert being added in. A lot of people are worried about Chase Brown and that overall upside rest of the season. I still like it. DeAndre Swift is a guy that I'm trying to buy everywhere. I absolutely love this overall B tier. The C tier, we got J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, Bucky Irving, Najee Harris, Kareem Hunt. We'll have to see when Isaiah Pacheco is going to be coming back. I feel like I don't have Isaiah Pacheco in my rest of season rankings because I don't know. Like, are we waiting 2 more weeks? Are we waiting 3, 4 more weeks for Isaiah Pacheco? So this is kind of why I have Kareem Hunt here in the C tier. Najee Harris, Rachaad White, Tank Bigsby, and then Chuba Hubbard. We saw Jonathan Brooks get activated off of IR, so we're going to have to kind of monitor the Chuba Hubbard situation in our rest of season rankings, but like in this C tier of running backs. And then we kind of rounded out here in the D tier for running backs. We got Rico Dowdle, we got Nick Chubb, we got Javonte Williams, we got Jordan Mason, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, Austin Eckler, and Alexander Madison. And maybe you could make the argument that I needed to put Austin Eckler a little bit higher than Jalen Warren. I hear you. Jordan Mason, like we said, he's kind of getting relegated to that RB2 role. But like, how healthy is CMC going to be rest of season for Jordan Mason? A lot of questions to be had there, but that is my running back rankings. We move on to the wide receivers, and we started off in the S tier of wide receivers, and we started off with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Nico Collins coming off of injury, CeeDee Lamb, and Malik Neighbors. And the part that we need to know with this whole S tier of wide receivers is Jamar Chase has made that jump for me as the clear wide receiver 1 rest of the season. Justin Jefferson's been absolutely elite. We love to see what this whole tier is doing. So maybe there's like a top S tier where we got Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, kind of everyone else. Like that we're having Nico Collins come off of injury. That is going to be exceptionally good for Nico Collins. AJ Brown, we'll have to see with that knee injury if it's going to be a week, if it's going to be 2 weeks, but I still have him supplanted here in the S tier. Malik Neighbors rounding out. Malik Neighbors and CeeDee Lamb have kind of fallen in my rest of season rankings, but you still got to feel good about having these elite level wide receivers on your team. We move on to the A tier, and we got Puka Nacua, we got Tyreek Hill, we got Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, and Brian Thomas. This is kind of the best of the rest, and Puka Nacua, we'll have to see. He's been battling injuries all year. Tyreek Hill, can he get on the same page as Tua Tagovailoa? Terry, Scary Terry, maybe he needs to be at the top of the A tier, you might argue, with the way that he's been balling with Jaden Daniels. Drake London's been turning it on. Garrett Wilson, shout out Devontae Adams comes in town, no can do, no big problem. Dude's an absolute baller, steps it up, has even better days ahead. Cooper Kupp, and then Brian Thomas the incredible rookie level wide receiver who right now is like the wide receiver 2 for rookies in my overall rankings here in the A tier. But then we move on to the B tier and we got Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, Jaden Reed, Zay Flowers, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. This tier I still feel very good about. Zay Flowers after last week, really, I think for me, Zay Flowers is one that I'm struggling to rank because I do think Deontay Johnson, as he gets more comfortable in this Baltimore Ravens offense, we could be looking at them both being like high-end wide receiver 2s, middling wide receiver 2s, but I do have Zay Flowers as a high-end wide receiver 2 here in my overall B tier. Devontae Adams, we saw that touchdown upside. I think him and Garrett Wilson can coexist. Deebo Samuel, can he get back to being healthy? There's wide open lanes in this 49ers receiving room, all ready for Deebo. Then Marvin Harrison Jr., can he get on the same page with Kyler Murray for that ultimate level high-end upside? And we move on to the C tier, and we started off with T. Higgins. Mr. Can I ever get healthy, T. Higgins? I think that's going to be a huge one for T. Higgins going forward. George Pickens, like what he's doing with Russell Wilson, have him here in the C tier. Darnell Mooney's been getting all the targets. Honestly, Darnell Mooney's maybe been the surprise sleeper / league winner for fantasy football, so you absolutely have to love some Darnell Mooney. DeAndre Hopkins with that Chiefs offense look like prime Randy Moss and Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins, so definitely like some DeAndre Hopkins here in the C tier. Josh Downs, Tank Dell, and then JSN, that amazing, huge breakout performance that he just had in week 9 fantasy football. Going forward, week 10, can he continue that up? Now, we move on to the D tier, and we got Mike Evans, Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Ladd McConkey, and Chris Olave. Mike Evans and Chris Olave both battling injuries, but I both do have them here in the D tier. Heading forward, we should see maybe Chris Olave come back this week. Mike Evans is probably still another week or two away, but that upside is very relevant. So if you're trying to make any deals looking in, like, could I trade a Khalil Shakir for Mike Evans? I would love that for the overall upside. I think you're getting great value. Then we look at the 2 Buffalo wide receivers between Khalil Shakir and Amari Cooper. Khalil Shakir's been balling ever since Amari Cooper got traded there, but I do like Amari Cooper as the alpha rest of the season in this Buffalo Bills offense. Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, and then Ladd McConkey's really started to turn things up, especially maybe the argument should be made Ladd should go ahead of Jalen Warren and DJ Moore, but I do have them ranked that way. Move on to the E tier, and we got Jamison Williams, Jacoby Myers as the number 1 for the Raiders. Things have really started to step up. Cedric Tillman might be a little bit too low after the last 2 weeks of absolutely wide receiver 1 overall finishes for the guy. Love some Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton, and then Michael Pittman Jr. to round out the E tier. And like I said, guys, if you guys are not currently already subscribed, we are on the way to 4,000 subscribers. Want you guys here in the community answering all your start sit questions, all your trade questions all season long. So want you here as well. We move on to the F tier. We got Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Romeo Dubs, Rome Odunze, Jordan Addison, Keenan Allen, and then Ricky Pearsall. And I probably should have put Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings like back to back, but I want you to know that if you're looking at this tiers, that you should have Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall here back to back in my rankings. Like what we're seeing from Jordan Addison, as we saw TJ Hawkinson coming back, but Jordan Addison and Rome Odunze, I think both have ways to move up the board. Romeo Dubs had a few hot games. We know that this Packers overall offense, they're mixing in a lot of different mouths that are needed to be fed. So Romeo Dubs is going to have his ups. He's going to have his downs. Same with Keon Coleman and Xavier Worthy. These are really, like we said, high-end wide receiver 3 flex plays going forward. We're moving on to the next year, and we got Xavier Legette, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Watson, Wan'Dale Robinson, and then Jalen McMillan to round out our overall wide receiver rankings. Now we move off of the wide receivers and we move into the tight ends. So when we started off on the tight end landscape, we got George Kittle, we got Brock Bowers, we got Trey McBride, and we got Travis Kelce. We've been talking about it all season, that the tight end landscape was super dire. It's starting to solidify a little bit as we head into the second half of the season. George Kittle passed Brock Bowers as my overall tight end 1 rest of the season. Still have to feel very good about if you have Brock Bowers. If you have any of these 4 guys, you got to feel really great about it. Absolutely loving my teams that have a Brock Bowers, that have a Trey McBride, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. But then we move on to this A tier, and Cade Otton has made a storm up the rankings after what Cade Otton has done the last week with his targets, where we're looking at Cade Otton the last 3 weeks, 10, 10, and 11 total targets. Dude has to be up here. He's starting to emerge as an absolutely elite level tight end with no Mike Evans, with no Chris Godwin having to step up. So we like Cade Otton here starting off the A tier. David Njoku's also been an absolute target hog. Like we said, they're getting the targets, but they're on a little less high performing offenses. So the overall touchdown upside isn't as high for them, but I still love David Njoku, Cade Otton starting off this year. Evan Ingram continues to be Evan Ingram, just Mr. Old Reliable. Jake Ferguson, we'll have to see with no Dak Prescott, how long Dak Prescott's going to be out, how that's going to impact Jake Ferguson's overall rest of season ranking. And then Tucker Kraft here to round out the A tier. And that pushed Kyle Pitts down to the B tier, where we got a bunch of guys that you drafted super high, like a Mark Andrews, like a Sam Laporta, like a Kyle Pitts to round out the B tier. I do think Kyle Pitts, I just watched Kirk Cousins talk about the upside of Kyle Pitts on his Pat McAfee show. And I do love Kyle Pitts. I really do. But here in the B tier is kind of where I'm having Kyle Pitts end up. We move over to the C tier. Dalton Kincaid has made the fall all the way down. Like we said, there's been zero reliability for Dalton Kincaid as a starting tight end in your lineup. Mike Gesicki's had his games, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, and then Pat Freiermuth to round out my overall tight end rankings. We move on over to the quarterbacks, and we started off in the S tier. Of course, Lamar Jackson is the clear QB1 for fantasy football rest of the season. Josh Allen slides in as my QB2, so I really think there's a top two tier here between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, how those two have been balling. Now, Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels, this one's been hard for me. I've been flip-flopping over the last few weeks. I did have Jaden Daniels as my QB1 at one point this season, and I think if you drafted Jaden Daniels late, he's been an absolutely winner for you. There's kind of a clear top four. I want one of these elite level Konami code quarterback guys. If not, of course, if you got a Joe Burrow, if you have a Jordan Love, that should be fine for your overall fantasy roster. But this is the clear S tier of quarterbacks for me. We move to the A tier, and we started off with Kyler Murray. Brock Purdy's been absolutely balling, so maybe we could make the argument that Brock Purdy should actually start off this overall A tier. Kirko Cousins, Kirko Chains, making it all the way the quarterback rankings. I think his rest of season schedule looks absolutely great. I love how this offense with Bijan Robinson and Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts is starting to get rolling. So have Kirko Chains here in the A tier. Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes with DeAndre Hopkins. This could really help boost his overall fantasy football value. But then CJ Stroud has had the lawn fall from grace. Hopefully with Nico Collins back, that's going to help him. But with no Stephon Diggs rest of the season and the way that he's been balling for fantasy football purposes, it has not been great. And then we move on to the B tier, and we started off with Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Tua Tagovailoa, Bo Nix, Matthew Stafford, Drake May. Baker Mayfield's been balling even without Mike Evans, even without Chris Godwin, so we have to have him here. I disrespected him in my last rest of season rankings, had to push him back up the rankings. Sam Darnold's been balling. Tua Tagovailoa, can he get this offense back and humming with all the weapons that he has? Devon, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, love it. Bo Nix has been a canonical quarterback upside. Same with Drake May, but Bo Nix has a little bit better weapons, so both these guys are here in the B tier. Matthew Stafford with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp back, and Demarcus Robinson's been balling for Matthew Stafford as well as Kyron Williams. Absolutely love to see where this B tier is going. And then the C tier, we rounded out with Geno Smith, Caleb Williams, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott. Like we said, we don't know when Dak Prescott's going to come back, so he might be someone that we end up dropping depending on our overall teams, but then also having Justin Herbert here to round out our overall quarterback ranking. So if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, we will be streaming on Friday night. We will be answering all your start sit questions in this video and trade questions. So if you haven't checked out these two videos, check them out. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. On the way to 4,000 subscribers. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.